Untitled Podcast is a part of the Kansas Google Education Group Network and also the Mace Kansas Network. You can find more information about episodes and guests at www.untitledpc.net. Welcome to Untitled Podcast. My name is Travis True.
And I'm Carol Nelson. Welcome to this episode of the Untitled Podcast. Today we have Carmen Zeisler. She is the director of ESDEC Learning Centers, an educational consultant, coach, and a co-founding member of the ESDEC Resilience team. In the Learning Centers, she has been instrumental in leading a redesign process through project-based learning. In schools, Carmen loves collaborating with teachers on trauma-informed practices, and she leads the restorative justice in schools effort on the ESDEC Resilience team. Her other passion as a consultant and coach is supporting teachers to build a strong reading culture in their classroom. One of her favorite ways to do this is to use picture books with science and social studies to make those content areas come alive for students. Carmen is also well-versed in integrating technology tools and platforms into the elementary classroom. She has supported and coached countless teachers as they've implemented new tech. Some of her favorites are Seesaw, Flipgrid, and ClassKick. Carmen has traveled the world as a teacher. She spent 10 years in Mexico at the American Institute of Monterey teaching 9th and 10th grade English literature and helped build the Gifted and Talented program that was used as a model for all the state of Nuevo Leon. Am I saying that?
Nueve.
I knew I wasn't going to get that one right. Carmen fell in love with the Mexican culture through language, food, dance, music, and people. She started getting a little antsy and wanted a new adventure, so she headed off to Brasilia, Brazil, where she spent 3 years in an American School of Brazil teaching kindergarten. During this time, she had students from 16 different countries in one classroom. Her time in Brazil left her with a passion for writing and languages. She landed back home here in McPherson, Kansas, where she taught 10 years prior to coming on board at ESDEC. Carmen has been to 33 countries and loves infusing her travels into her teaching. She is a natural at building relationships with students and teachers so that she can then ask powerful questions that help ignite passions. I agree 120 million%, Carmen. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Carmen, just share with listeners, we heard quite a bit there about your journey, but just share with listeners kind of your start in education and your journey and kind of how you ended up back home and at ESDEC.
Yeah. So ever since when I was in kindergarten, I knew I was going to be a teacher. I had the best kindergarten teacher. Her name was Mrs. Roethlisberger, and we called her Mrs. R because Roethlisberger is a little hard for kindergartners. And even back then, I saved things because I knew I would use them in my classroom. I have things like lessons that teachers did throughout all of my elementary career that I saved because one day I was going to use them in my own classroom. I grew up in California actually, and then we moved to McPherson when I was in high school. And that was a huge culture shock, Orange County, California to McPherson, Kansas. But gosh, I just had some really stellar teachers from McPherson High School that just really guided me and just showed me that I could be a good teacher, and they just gave me lots of opportunities. And so, I finished my college degree up at McPherson College and just had just amazing opportunities to be in the classroom throughout my whole college career, which I know that doesn't always happen. And I was just really blessed. Most of our methods classes were actually held at a local elementary school. And so we got to like be in a school, hear about things, and then go into the classrooms and actually see it. And so that just made learning, all that we were learning of, in our methods, just come alive. And I could not wait to have my own classroom. And then I did interviews and I didn't get a job. I interviewed 13 school districts, like that summer or that spring of senior year, and I got nothing. And I was devastated. And it was in July. Actually, Dr. Watson, we joke because Dr. Watson didn't hire me. Our Kansas Commissioner of Education, he was the superintendent at McPherson. We joke about that now. But he said, well, you just get some more experience. And I'm like, I'm supposed to get experience when nobody will give me a job. And one of my professors from college called and said, hey, Carmen, I just got back from Monterey and there's a teaching job. 9th grade English literature. Is that something you'd be interested in? In my head, I was thinking Monterey, California. And I was like, I'm there. Like, beautiful, beautiful city. I have friends in the area. Like, I'm there. And then she gave me a phone number to call. And it was 011-528-357-4762. And I was like, why is there so many numbers? And she's like, Monterey, Mexico. And so I was like, okay. So I called, and 3 weeks later, I moved to Monterey. And it was a 1-year contract. And I stayed there for 10 years. It was just a tremendous experience. In Monterey, as an international teacher, I got to just do all kinds of things that I would not have been able to do in the States because everything wasn't tied to certification. And, I just got to grow and experience and try. And it was just a phenomenal experience there. And then also just living in a different country and experience a different culture was pretty spectacular. While I was there, I really, we had tremendous professional development, and gifted and talented education kind of became like my thing. And, I got to do a lot of work with Joe Renzulli and Sally Renzulli from the University of Connecticut. And, just had some amazing opportunities to travel and to see schools all over Mexico, but also just all over Central America. And then at year 10, I was just kind of ready for something a little different. And I threw out my resume to some international schools. And if you don't know about international teaching, like getting a job is not that easy. There's a lot. It's really competitive to get jobs at good schools, international schools. And they do job fairs and they're very expensive to attend. And I was trying to avoid the job fair route. And so I threw out my resume to some smaller schools, really initially in Spanish-speaking countries, because by that point I was fluent in Spanish. And then I came across the American School of Brasilia, knowing it was going to be Portuguese, but I was like, I might as well try. And I got an email back from the superintendent, and he goes, guess who this is? And I was like, who is this? Like, I have no idea. It was my high school history teacher from McPherson, Kansas.
Wow. That's cool.
And he says, I've got a chemistry position and a kindergarten position. What do you want? And I was like, kindergarten, I'll take it. And so I headed to Brasilia, to Brazil. It was a hard move after living in Mexico for such a long time. And but again, I mean, just the idea, I had 16 kids from all these different countries in my classroom, and which was just absolutely amazing. The experiences that they were able to share at age 5 was just tremendous. And then being able to travel all in that area. And then after year 3, I needed to come home and just reconnect and rest. And so I started working. I took a year off and worked at a church. And then I started working in the McPherson, Kansas School District, USD 418, and did 3rd grade. And then I looped with a couple of grade levels with 4th and 5th. And then I got a phone call from ESDAC, which is Educational Support Service Center in the state of Kansas. There's 5 or 6 of them in the state of Kansas. And really the mission behind ESDAC is just, how can we help? How can we support? What can we do to support teachers, administrators, school staff? I mean, we do a wide range of things. And it was a really hard decision to make, but I was kind of ready for a change and to try something new. So this is my 3rd year at ESDAC.
Wow. You and I connected at McPherson. I had absolutely no idea of all the traveling in your past. It's amazing. How do you feel like your experiences with traveling and just the different cultures has shaped and influenced you into the position that you are now?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good question. I think, for me, traveling, it's all about learning and being able to experience other things and not being afraid. I've had some pretty crazy traveling experiences, just like anybody who has traveled. I've had some absolutely terrible experiences, and I've had some pretty amazing experiences. And every single one of the experiences has brought new perspective, new ideas. And I don't know, just being able to, for me, one of the best things is being able to read a book to kiddos and be like, oh, yeah, hey, let's look at some pictures from when I was at, the Great Wall of China. Or, here's what I thought. Or let's call up a friend of mine who lives there right now. I think that's one of the coolest things, is just all the different connections and stuff, all the people that I know, and being able to bring that into the classroom. Because yes, I can talk about all these things, but when they're actually talking to somebody who is in China, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. And so, like, just having the opportunity to just do so many different things, like so much of my career was international teaching. And when you're international teaching, you do all the things. You're there to teach and to travel. Your family that is there is really like are the other teachers that are far away from home as well. And so you just get so many opportunities to just do so many different things. And so, I got to do professional development. Like my first year, I was able to share different things. I remember doing a workshop on the multiple intelligence. That seems like such a long time ago in education land. And just being able to share ideas and collaborate and learn from others. That's what I do right now, is share ideas, collaborate, learn from others. I was with preschool kindergarten teachers today, And I mean, we were working on theme and literacy. And I mean, we read books, we shared books, we collaborated on a novel engineering challenge, and we got feedback from each other. So all of those things that were started at the very beginning of my career are still there.
So part of your work at ESDAC is on the resilience team. Can you share with us what that team, what the focus is? And then also for those listeners that don't know, can you kind of explain what this restorative justice is?
Yeah. So the ESDAC resilience team is made up of Rebecca Lewis Pankratz, Ginger Lumen, and Katie Perez, and myself. And our team is we're here to help and support schools as they're moving in like that trauma, more towards trauma responsive practices inside their school, inside their classroom, in their district. And so we have a variety of different I don't want to say workshops because yes, workshops, but really we want to walk with you through the process. So it's a long-term commitment that schools are making, but it's not just a commitment, it's just this collaboration. And each of us kind of specialize in different areas. Rebecca's going to come in and she's going to do, that poverty simulation. She's going to share her story, which if you haven't heard Rebecca's story, you need to hear Rebecca's story. And then, Katie's going to come in with kind of the data piece and tracking piece and relationship building piece and some just phenomenal coaching. And, Ginger's going to come in and she's going to help with all kinds of strategies and ideas. And also with the coaching piece. And then, I get to come in and help with restorative justice in education. And so we really feel like schools that have been on this trauma-informed journey, one of the pieces is that is always very difficult is that punishment versus discipline. And, what is that? What does it look like, sound like, feel like? And how can we move away in schools from zero tolerance policies, and how can we move away from everything being just cut and dry and just around punishment? We really want to look at the idea of restoring, repairing harm, and transforming conflict. And so in the idea of restorative justice, kind of our core value is that all people are worthy, all people are relational, and let's build community, like real true community inside our classrooms, with our colleagues, with inside our school, so that when conflict happens, which we know it's going to happen, we have a foundation of community so that we can repair that harm and transform the conflict into something that is helpful for people rather than harmful.
Now, so for you and for the listeners, we'll have some information about the resilience team on our website. So you have that on the ESDAC website?
Yeah,
somebody can reach out to you if they're interested in that.
Yeah, resilienceteam.esdac.org is our website. And on that website, it breaks down kind of who we are and what we are about. And so in there, you can look at kind of like the continuum of trauma-informed practices as well, and what we recommend as we're walking with you, be it a teacher, a school, a district, and then just all of the different offerings that we have.
It's a great team. You have a really good team.
Yeah. I'm so blessed to be a part of the team.
Yeah, I love just how you describe it as walking with. We can feel alone sometimes in education, and especially right now, just with what we're dealing with, and thinking of the kind of the right now, how right now should we be aware of kind of the trauma going on in families, that COVID alone has brought for not only just students, but teachers as well. Do you have just some insight to share?
Yeah. So I think that it's, we're dealing with so much toxic stress right now. And when we think about toxic stress, we're thinking about isolation. We're thinking about overwhelm. And, when we're isolated and overwhelmed, we can't make very good decisions, be it adults or students. And so we know that the biggest thing that's going to make a difference is safe, supportive, positive relationships. And so, how do we do that? What does that look like, for example, in a remote setting? Because we know that a lot of our schools across the United States, that's where they're at right now. And so I think it's so important to think about, like, what are some connection type things to know your students, to be able to learn about them. Like I think of a teacher that I saw on Instagram that she had this piece of paper, she just had a piece of paper in front of her computer. And as she was teaching, if she noticed anything on, the Zoom views, she would write it down. So, like, for example, she would say, Carol, a cat just walked by. She would write that down. And then later on, she'd be like, hey, can you tell me about that cat? What is your cat's name? So just noticing those things to be able to make connections. Kiddos that maybe are not showing up or are not engaging. What do? We've got to make some phone calls. We've got to connect with them in different ways. Maybe is it a postcard? Is it a phone call? Is it a text message? I think there's so many creative ways that we can do. And we have to focus in on the connection. And I think it's connection with students and it's connection with family. And I realize that that's a lot. And we can't necessarily, it feels overwhelming to try to do that for everybody. But I think that's where we have to come together as a school. And we got to figure out, like, let's do some relationship mapping. Like, who has a connection with this, with these students? Okay, you're their champion. You're going to be the one you are focusing in on these 5-6 students. Who has a connection with these students? Okay, you go do that. And maybe that's a way we could, especially in the remote setting, I know paras and instructional aides and things are like, what are they working on? What are they doing? What could they do? I think they've got tremendous connections with kiddos and, and families. And I think that relationship mapping piece is so critical right now. It takes some time, but you could easily put a spreadsheet together for your school, with all of the names. Just do a download from your Power School or whatever you use, Skyward, whatever you use, and then have everybody access that. And who has deep connection? Who is the champion of kiddos? And let's get after this. Let's find those kiddos. Dr. Watson mentioned in a meeting a couple weeks ago that, like, across the United States, like, they're saying that there's 25% of kiddos we don't know where they're at right now in remote learning. That is a high number. So, we're not going to be able to, we can't solve, but we can walk with, and we can try our best. I think relationship mapping would be a good thing to do for schools. And one we would love to help you with too, if you need some guidance on that.
I love that thought of being a champion for a kiddo, and we could be champions for each other as well.
Yes, because that resilience piece, it's not just for kids. The safe, supportive, caring adult is really that factor in developing resilience, but that is for us as adults too. At EdTech, we've been working at home since March. Like, we haven't been in the office. And I have to be honest, like, it's hard sometimes. Like, Zoom collaboration only goes so far for me sometimes. And, wanting and needing people. And so, I have to think about that too. Like, who do I reach to? Who do I have a porch coffee visit with? What do I need to do to make connections to help build my resilience as well?
Tell us more about using picture books to make your content, the content area, all that content come alive and get students engaged.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Carol knows how much I love books. I really love, in particular, new books. Like, I love finding new books for students. I think I think we get into a little bit of maybe a bad habit in elementary with just kind of sticking with the books that we've always used. And I think it's important for us to really kind of take time to learn about what is current in children's literature right now. Because if there was ever a time, children's literature is exploding, especially in the area of diverse books, cultural responsive books. And we need to make sure that we have those in our classrooms, and in our school libraries. It is important that all of our students have access to those books and that they see themselves in those pages. For me, like, I love the idea of integrating picture books with other subjects, be it social studies, be it science, whatever it might be. I think that is really an easy way to showcase different authors, different cultures, just so many different topics. And I think picture books are a gateway to discussion. Right now I'm working on one major piece inside of restorative justice is community circles. And that's where students and the teacher are meeting together, maybe once a week, maybe once a day. It depends on schedules. But to have some conversation and really focusing in on introspective questions. And so I think picture books provide a really great opportunity for that. A book right now that I'm loving, a picture book, is The Oldest Student. It's the story of Mary Alice Walker. And she was 103 when she learned how to read. Her story is just tremendous. The illustrations in this picture book are tremendous. And I think of all the things that we can learn about. We can learn from Mary Alice, about resilience, about perseverance, about just her history, about her story. And what can we take from that makes an impact on us? Or what message is that story telling us that we can grab a hold of? I'm the director of the ESDEC Learning Centers, and so we're working with people to get their high school diplomas. And some people, we've got people of all ages, and so the idea of a 103-year-old walking in our doors, like, it makes me emotional to think of that. And so just as it does, when, we're able to watch, a 55-year-old graduate last year, she's got 6 kids. Her and her daughter were able to graduate together. She just pushed through. And so picture books just provide this opportunity for telling stories. And I think stories are connection for students. And I just think we can learn so much about each other through stories. In terms of science, there's nothing better than a picture book to showcase a science concept. It feels more real world to me. And students are able to grasp a hold of that and have, kind of a foundation or a touchstone to grab a hold of when we're looking at the science part of it.
You also mentioned, and I think we did a little bit of this too, is the novel engineering.
Oh, I love novel engineering. So now novelengineering.com, I think, it is, the concept is super simple. Picture books or chapter books, stepping into the story, pausing it on a problem, and then how can you build a solution for that problem, but actually build the solution. So go through the engineering design process. So Carol, we did it with Greek mythology, I think, right?
I was trying to remember.
Yeah, King Midas, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
And my favorite novel engineering will always be that King Midas one, because I don't know if you remember, but one group of the students, so the first line in the story was that King Midas is an angry king. And one of the groups of the students, they created a calm corner for King Midas. They had a big box, and I was like, what are they doing? And I mean, they had a calm corner, so that way the story wouldn't, nothing would have happened. He was angry, he would go to the calm corner.
Right from their classroom, because that's what they knew. I love it. It really does make picture books just kind of come alive. And
yeah,
I love that. So this is a question that we have asked every person that we've had on our podcast. So just it's interesting to see different perspectives on it. But what is something you will take away from teaching during COVID that you would carry forward and continue? Because we kind of can think of this as such a negative time, but there definitely are some growth spots and things that we might take on further and continue.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I love that question. I think for me, it's the engagement piece. And that engagement doesn't always look like a person sitting in the front row. Like, just because you don't have your camera screen on doesn't mean that you're not engaged. And so I think for me, the idea of like, what does engagement look like? And not making so many assumptions around it. I know I made a lot of assumptions around it. And so just figuring out in the different, because I'm not with just, one classroom all the time, but, little groups of people, adults. So how, what are the different ways that I can provide opportunities for engagement, and talking with them, asking them, like, what are the ways that is best for them to showcase their learning or to be involved in the discussion. I was just in a workshop today, and they didn't talk a lot, but they used the chat a lot. And I mean, that's engagement. That's engagement. Or, they were building their novel engineering structure for the Good Egg, John Jory's book. And, we got to see their engagement because we got to see their structures. Again, they might not have talked that much, but they definitely were participating and were engaged. So yeah, I think the engagement piece is a big one for me, and not making so many assumptions. And I think like when I was in the classroom, like I made a lot of assumptions based on how on body language. And I think we've got to throw that away.
Wow. Yep.
Well, Carmen, thank you for coming on with us and sharing your story and all the good things you're doing. Let our listeners know, where can they find you on Twitter?
Yeah, so I'm at Miss Zeisler, Zeisler. And then on Instagram, I'm at Carmen Cita, 9C. That was my first last name. 9C.
Just to remind everybody listening, we'll have links to everything, a lot of the resources mentioned on the show notes on the episode page. But again, Carmen, thank you very much. You're doing some awesome work, and it was great to hear your story. And I guess until next time, we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you.
Appreciate your passion, Carmen. It's fun seeing you again.